Welcome back, you filthy exiles. So I got bored waiting for Path of Exile 2 and decided that I hated myself enough to start a totally fresh SSF run here for Flicker Strike with no gear, no nothing, and I just wanted to challenge myself. Why Flicker Strike? Because I can. Anyway, here's where we're at so far, and this is my version of 0 to Hero on Flicker Strike. By the way, this is only part 1, so don't worry, the DPS is pretty chuffed, but all 4 trees that I have at the various stages will be down below in the description as well. Okay, so for those of you who don't know much about Flicker Strike, basically it works by feeding the skill Frenzy Charges, which allows you to teleport around the map, basically obliterating every enemy in sight. It just sort of latches on. Some questions I've had around how do you target it. You sort of get used to it as you play. It's hard to explain. You just sort of move the mouse in the right direction and hold down for dear life. In Delve, you can exceed into the darkness and just get totally eviscerated by darkness, so just be aware of that, and it can get pretty out of control the faster it gets. The end game for this tree can get to around 22 million DPS with a bit of a tankier variant, which is what I'm going to be playing, or am playing. However, you can get this build up into the hundreds of millions of DPS with the right setup in Trade League, that is. This is an SSF run, so we are definitely not going to be getting to 100 million DPS in this run. I'm just not that good at the game, so you need to lower your expectations a bit. The best Ascendency that I've sort of experimented with would be the Slayer for this, though you probably could get this working on the Warden and on the Trickster as well. And there is also Flicker Striker Power, which would work on the Trickster. Now, best in socket weapon is, or at least early on, is the Terminus Est, which is our target farming weapon. So we want to get this weapon early on in this SSF run, and essentially this is going to sustain the build up until about the range of 6 to 8 million DPS. Now, the reason why the Terminus Est is pretty much the best weapon early on is, unlike the Aura of Sacrifice, it doesn't really affect your elemental damage and doesn't take away your physical damage. The other thing is it's just a little bit more sort of higher on the DPS end, and the way that it works is every time you crit, you get a frenzy charge. It also gives you base attack speed as well, which is really useful. Now, if you wanted to do this in Trade League, it's usually really cheap in Trade League, in particular on the first day, because it's a really common drop. So yeah, you should have no issues. If you did want to use this as a league starter sort of thing, you pretty much can do this in league start scenario. The biggest issue is just the leveling, which I'll talk about very soon. Now, the next few target items that will progressively sort of push the build up will be gearing to reach maximum resistances and dark ray vectors, which I have in the tree for this, and I'll explain how I got this in this SSF run soon as well. Now, again, if you were sort of league starting, this is really easy with shipping and Fosters now being added into the game to be able to sort of Gamba merchant with gold, and hopefully we get that in the next league. But also the Dark Ray Vectors was super cheap, irrespectively if you were to play on a league start scenario. Again, it's like a really common drop that drops while people are clearing the campaign. And just resistance gear is just, you know, resistance gears. Okay, so the first thing I did was obviously pick the Duelist. Duelist is the best class to do this on, at least at the SSF level as far as I've found. I then proceeded to beach, grab myself Shattering Steel, and proceeded to smash my way through the end of the first act to where I could get access to both Flicker Strike and Sunder. Now, the way that I did this run, I tried to level this with a combination of Flicker Strike and Sunder like an idiot. I would not recommend doing that. Just literally level Sunder, and you just need to run like Ruthless melee, additional, added melee damage, physical damage that is. And then like attack speed, and then switch to multi-strike when that becomes available. Now I tried to get Flicker Strike working earlier with an axe, and it sort of did work. You will need to run Frenzy to be able to do that, and Blood Rage. Actually, you need Frenzy, the alt gem of Frenzy, to be able to proc that up, but alternatively, just literally run Blood Rage, and then you can use Sunder to clear bosses, and Flicker Strike to take everything else down from a clear speed standpoint. Otherwise, just roll Sunder until you can get yourself a Terminus Est, as I explained in the first part of the video, just as we just passed. Now, once I got to maps, this took about 10 hours approximately, and it was a rough grind, trying to use Flicker Strike like an idiot early. I then proceeded to farm 2 things, which were my early maps, which I've progressed to about T13 currently, and Heist. And I got here after about 21 hours. Or I was by 21 hours, I was progressed to like T13 red maps, which is pretty good. It did take 10 hours to do the campaign, which sucked because I just did not play this the right way, and I thought I could get Flickr working earlier, and I realized I'm not special. Now, why heist, you might be asking? Well, this is because I bloody well can, and also there is a reason why we're doing this, which is eventually we'll need access to a Replica Farruls Fur, and you can only obtain these through grand heisting. So leveling up heist early is just an easy way to both get early currency to be able to craft with, because it is SSF, so you do need access to early currency, and it's consistent XP, and it'll level up heist so you can eventually get your Replica Farruls Fur, so then you can switch out to a Paradoxica and Svalinn setup, which is what this build will be geared towards. Now, after about 15 hours or so, I realized my RNG in this run was total shit. So for this run, I decided to start gambling with Faustus, and after around 300,000 gold, I managed to get my Terminus S by just chancing swords, and then Flicker Strike was on the table. Now, after a bit more farming, I did then get my Dark Ray Vectors the same way, just from Faustus, and yeah, that's pretty much the best way to do it now. Now, I did forget to mention here that during my my journey, I did have an Iris Sacrifice drop, but I used this for a while. The reason why I wouldn't recommend Iris Sacrifice is it just feels very low point. And the way that this works is it's a good alternative, but every time you ignite an enemy, you'll then get a frenzy charge. But this was just significantly less reliable than relying on my Terminus S, which is working perfectly currently. And I think I'm at like 44% crit, which, but that's before power charges. So it gets pretty meaty on the crit zone. So every one out of 2 hits, pretty much I get a frenzy charge, which is a guarantee because I have multi-strike and I hit for a lot of hits at once. Okay, so for gearing on this so far, it's like SSF, so, you know, basically Helm, we're trying to get rarity on our gear as much as possible, also cold res, lightning res where we can. Now, I have a Terminus Est, obviously, that's the best sword that I need. Chest piece, I'm literally just stacking up a ton of armor and resistances and regeneration wherever I can. Same with amulet, is trying to get any amount of health that I can. Attributes is a big issue, so we've managed to work through that. Resistances is another thing that we're looking for as well. Rings is the same, so resistances, rarity, find where we can, and attributes where we can, and the same goes with both rings. So I have a lot of rarity in my build. I think I have about 105% rarity, something of that nature. 85%, sorry. And then basically, same with gloves with some attack speed, life, and any other resistances and regeneration rate. Dark Ray Vectors, again, these are the best boots right now. So they give us +1 frenzy charges, which amps us up, and it gives us a ton of attack speed. So that's 5% times 8 frenzy charges currently, which is what, 40%. And then basically, yeah, lightning resist and whatnot. And then my belt is just any old belt that I could get. And flasking wise is just life. Everything has generating charges when I crit, and you can do what you need to basically make that work. Now, when I say go and gamble with Faustus, I literally mean Faustus the financier. You do black market trading, and you just gamble until you get the gear that you need, right? So really easy. But that's it for the gearing so far. It's really easy to gear up early on. I think I'm at like, with a 5-link setup, once I get that done, then, you know, I'll be at like 1.2 million on SSF within like, this would technically be the first day of League if you were to do a fresh League start. Now, in relation to gem setups, I'm a lot less optimized than what I should be. In my helm right now, I just have a 4-link Flicker Strike setup, which gets me into like nearly 900,000 DPS. So we've got Flicker Strike, and we use the lab to get 20% on the quality as well. And then basically close combat support, multi-strike, and ruthless gets us over the line for now. And then in my sword, or my terminus, I've got Leap Slam. I did get a Summon Stone Golem of Safeguarding, but you don't need it. It just helps you a little bit early on if you get it out of lab and you're really lucky, but not necessary for the build. Then Herald of Ice and Hatred. In my chest, I have Precision and Arrogance, so we reserve a little bit of health to be able to get the build to a position where we can sustain mana without any major issues, but we actually should be fine to take that off and get our health pool back up. Now, in my gloves, I've got Molten Shell, Automation, and Life Tap. And then I have in my boots, Mark on Hit, Assassin's Mark, and Life Tap as well. And this just helps with sustaining mana, but arguably we don't need Life Tap I just have it for the time being. I will be switching this out and upgrading a lot more as I progress the build more, but I just need to basically mindlessly farm on stream to do that. But, you know, gem setups are really simple right now. Now, as far as pathing tree, basically we come down from the jeweler's starting point and we're going to hit up to destroyer. I did sort of go up this direction first, so I moved up to grab these points up to the further points first. And then basically also you want to target getting Primeval Force, and then also you want to get Cornered Prey and Fangs pretty early on, as well as Entrench, which gives you spell suppression. I did also take Life and Mana Leech here. This just helps sustain Mana Leech. Now, early on, you won't need this Titanic Impacts, but you will need to come down and grab Discipline of Slaughter and Discipline of Unyielding pretty early on too. Golem's Blood, we have this one node for Rage on Hit, which is all we need because we hit so many times, like 8 times, 8.56 times, something like that, that we get full Rage up pretty much straight away. And then basically into Dismembering, we get Blade of Cunning, and we also want to have Tribal Fury. Tribal Fury, because Flicker Strike is a strike skill, allows you to hit more enemies or an additional enemy at once, and also gives you melee strike. Skills have Splash. So this was less efficient originally when you didn't have this node, and it actually made Flicker Strike really powerful, and I never realized it before, but anyway. And then to get early Fortify, we just literally get the Steadfast point and the Fortify Mastery, which gives us melee hits Fortify, and then a Bloodless setup up here. Now, Ascendancy-wise, I haven't even finished my Ascendancies. I basically went up into Brutal Fervor, then down into Masterful Form, and then down into Bane of Legends, and finally we'll start on Impact, which will give me mad lad levels of AoE and accuracy, and it's just going to be ridiculous once you start blasting through enemies. But yeah, that's basically it for the pathing tree. Super easy, super simple. It's like a tried and true build. There's like a ton of different ways to play it. This isn't like the perfect optimum tree, but you know, it's working for me, and I'm just blasting maps currently and progressing through the leveling process in SSF. Okay, and because we're playing SSF, we need to start a new atlas, right? So basically, I came up and got Secret Stash, went down in to get the Dutiful Soldier, because I'm going for contracts, up into Shaping of the Skies, and then I worked up into Shaping of the World, I worked up into Friends in High Places, and then capped out with Casing the Joint and No Honor Among Thieves, because I'm maxing out Heist to be able to get my Replica Farruls Fur. Then I've come back up the other direction to get Syndicate and got Obsessed Vengeance. Sorry, you can see that there. Then back up to this point down to Frantic Mining, so I could start getting some Sulfide and maps, which tend to be capped out all the time. Then I've come across and picked up some more Delve Mission Chancing, down into some more Syndicate down here. And that's basically where we're at currently. I think map completion wise, we are slowly getting there. So at 65 of 115 maps so far. And that's on a 4-league setup with Flicker Strike after like 21 hours, or we can do Played when we learn how to type. So 1 day, 24 hours roundabouts of gameplay time, which is not too bad on an SSF setup. Like, it always takes longer on SSF because we've got to manually farm everything. But anyway, that's it for the Atlas tree setup. Okay, so that pretty much covers off part 1. It's not a huge amount of meat on the bone. Like, I just thought it'd be a little bit fun to do SSF because it is more challenging. It is a lot harder to get a Flicker Strike build working because you can't sort of fudge your way with rares. And I had nothing else better to do because we're like everybody else. We're all waiting for Path of Exile 2 eagerly within the month. Or within the next 30 days, and yeah, I needed something to sink my teeth into, and why not SSF, because I am not going back and playing Diablo 4 again. But yeah, anyway, if you like this video, don't forget to like and sub to the channel, don't forget to follow the Twitch, and the X is also linked down below, and I will see you guys pretty much on stream, and there's probably going to be a part 2 and a part 3 as we progress this build further, depending on how many hours I get to play. But yeah, otherwise all the POBs will be in the description below anyway, so you can progress your version of the build if you want to take a crack at Flicker Strike, just for a bit of fun before we get into PoE 2 awesomeness. Anyway, I'll see you guys later, and have a good one.